Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cammie's Kids Reading. Today we'll be continuing with Tales of Amanda Pig by Jean Van Leeuwen. The Fight. Let's play house, said Amanda. You always want to play house, said Oliver. Let's play monsters. How do you do that? Asked Amanda. Simple, said Oliver. You are you and I am the monster and I come to eat you up. No, said Amanda. Amanda's afraid of monsters, said Oliver. I am not, said Amanda. Then let's play, said Oliver. I am the terrible Booba monster. I have a nice fat baby. The Booba monster likes to eat nice fat babies. I am not playing, said Amanda, and I am not a fat baby. If you think so, you can get out of my room. You can't make me, said Oliver. The Booba monster does what he wants. Father, called Amanda. Oliver is bothering me. Amanda is bothering me, said Oliver. Maybe you should play by yourselves for a little while, said Father. Me and dumb Oliver, said Amanda. Go away and never come back. Fat baby Amanda, said Oliver. Don't worry, I won't. He slammed the door. Peace and quiet, said Amanda. She sat her rabbit and her monkey at her little table. I am the mother, she said, and you are the babies. Come on, rabbit, eat your egg. Eggs make you big and strong. No, I don't know when your father will be home. Amanda went to the living room. I have nothing to do, she said. I thought you were playing house, said Father. It's no fun alone, said Amanda. I have nothing to do either, said Oliver. Maybe you can play together now, said Father. Come to my room, said Amanda. The babies are waiting for their father to come home. I still don't want to play house, said Oliver. How about Monster House, said Amanda. I'll be the mother monster and you can be the father monster. Well, said Oliver. Okay. Come on, father monster, said Amanda. Where are we going, mother monster? Asked Oliver. I know where there are some nice fat babies, said Amanda. Let's go eat them up. Sleeping time. Good night, Amanda, said Mother. Good night, Mother, said Amanda. I'm not sleepy. You're not? Said Mother. I'm very sleepy. I know what, said Amanda. You be the little girl and I'll be the mother and I will put you to bed. That would be nice, said Mother. Amanda got out of bed and Mother got in. Amanda pulled the quilt up. Now you are nice and cozy, she said. Would you like a story? Yes, please, said Mother. Once there was a princess, and she lived with her mother and her father in a big, big castle. And that's the end of the story, said Amanda. How about a song? Yes, please, said Mother. When you're asleep in your bed and you hear a strange noise, it might be an owl or it might not, but don't worry, I am here. And that's the end of the song, said Amanda. Now it's time to go to sleep. Amanda tucked Mother in. She gave Mother her rabbit to hug and kissed her good night. Good night, sweet potato, she said. Mother did not answer. Her eyes were closed. I think my little girl is asleep, said Amanda. Amanda sat and watched Mother sleep. It seemed very quiet in the room, and empty, and a little bit cold. Amanda touched Mother. Wake up, she said. Mother kept on sleeping. It's my turn, said Amanda louder. She took off Mother's quilt. Huh, what? Mother snorted. She sat up. I said it's my turn, said Amanda. But I'm nice and cozy, said Mother. You be the mother now, said Amanda, and I'll be the little girl. Well, all right, said Mother. She got out of bed, and Amanda got in. Now it's time to go to sleep, said Mother. She tucked Amanda in. She gave Amanda her rabbit to hug and kissed her goodnight. Good night, sweet potato, said Mother. Good night, Mother, said Amanda. The end. Albert Einstein, A Curious Mind by Sarah Albee. Albert Einstein asked a lot of questions. He was a curious kid, but even after he grew up, he kept on asking questions. He never lost his sense of wonder. Albert was born in Germany. His father was an engineer. His mother was a musician. When Albert was still a baby, they moved from a small town to a big city. Little Albert did not speak until he was nearly 3 years old, but his loving parents knew their son was gifted. When Albert was about 4, his father gave him a compass. The compass fascinated Albert. What invisible force made the needle point north? Albert began to learn the violin. He loved it. Music helped him think. He played for the rest of his life. At school, Albert was a star student in math and science. He was not as strong in other subjects. One of Albert's teachers told him he would never amount to anything. Albert's classes were dull. The teachers did not want students to ask questions. Albert daydreamed a lot. When Albert was about 12, a grown-up friend gave him a book. It was all about geometry. Albert read the whole thing and solved every problem. Soon he knew more than the friend. At 16, Albert took an exam to get into a college in Switzerland. He scored high in math and science. He failed the other parts. 1 year later, he took the test again and passed. Albert kept asking questions. He questioned rules. This annoyed his teachers. He even questioned laws, including the laws of physics. To rest his brain, he played the violin. Beautiful harmony pleased him. It may have helped him understand the harmony of the universe. Albert Einstein started a family. He wanted a teaching job but couldn't find one. And he needed money, so he got a job in an office. It gave him time to think. What is light? What is energy? When he wasn't at work, Albert kept on thinking, what is time? Do atoms and molecules exist? Not everyone thought so. He had a childlike sense of wonder at how nature worked. Einstein did not have a laboratory to perform his experiments, so he pictured them in his mind. He called them thought experiments. In 1905, Einstein turned 26. He published 4 articles that year. They explained many mysteries about the universe. They changed science forever. Four years later, Einstein was offered a job at a university. Today, Einstein is better known for his famous equation E = mc squared. This equation helps explain his special theory of relativity. Years later, when Einstein was 40, his theory was confirmed by other scientists that made him famous. In the 1930s, Hitler ruled Germany. Jewish people were not safe there. Einstein was Jewish. He and his family moved to the USA when World War II started. Einstein hated war, but he knew Hitler must be stopped. Some of his ideas were used by other scientists to build bombs and weapons. Albert Einstein loved kids. He shared their joy and curiosity about the world. He never stopped asking questions. Imagination is more important than knowledge, he said. The end. The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munsch. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. Unfortunately, a dragon smashed her castle, burned all her clothes, and with his fiery breath, and carried off Prince Ronald. Elizabeth decided to chase the dragon and get Ronald back. She looked everywhere for something to wear, but the only thing she could find that was not burnt was a paper bag. So she put on the paper bag and followed the dragon. He was easy to follow because he left a trail of burnt forest and horses' bones. Finally, Elizabeth came to a cave with a large door that had a huge knocker on it. She took hold of the knocker and banged on the door. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Well, a princess. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I am a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." He slammed the door so fast that Elizabeth almost got her nose caught. Elizabeth grabbed the knocker and banged on the door again. The dragon stuck his nose out of the door and said, "Go away. I love to eat princesses, but I have already eaten a whole castle today. I'm a very busy dragon. Come back tomorrow." "Wait," shouted Elizabeth. "Is it true that you are the smartest and fiercest dragon in the whole world?" "Yes," said the dragon. "Is it true," said Elizabeth, "that you can burn up 10 forests with your fiery breath?" "Oh, yes," said the dragon, and he took a huge deep breath and breathed out so much fire that it burnt up 50 forests. "Fantastic," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath and breathed out so much fire he burnt up 100 forests. "Magnificent," said Elizabeth, and the dragon took another huge breath, but this time nothing came out. The dragon didn't even have enough fire left to cook a meatball. Elizabeth said, "Dragon, is it true that you can fly around the world in just 10 seconds?" "Why, yes," said the dragon, and jumped up and flew all the way around the world in just 10 seconds. He was very tired when he got back, but Elizabeth shouted, "Fantastic! Do it again!" So the dragon jumped up and flew around the whole world in just 20 seconds. When he got back, he was too tired to talk. He just lay down and went straight to sleep. Elizabeth whispered very softly, "Hey, dragon." The dragon didn't move at all. She lifted up the dragon's ear and put her head right inside. She shouted as loud as she could, "Hey, dragon!" The dragon was so tired, he didn't even move. Elizabeth walked right over the dragon and opened the door to the cave. There was Prince Ronald. He looked at her and said, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. You smell like ashes, your hair is all tangled, and you aren't wearing anything except a dirty old paper bag. Come back when you are dressed like a real princess." "Ronald," said Elizabeth, "your clothes are really pretty, and your hair is very neat. You look like a real prince, but you are a bum." They didn't get married after all. The end. The Fire Station by Robert Munsch. Michael and Sheila were walking down the street. As they passed the fire station, Sheila said, "Michael, let's go ride a fire truck." "Well," said Michael, "I think maybe I should ask my mother, and I think maybe I should ask my father, and I think we should go in," said Sheila. Then she grabbed Michael's hand and pulled him up to the door. Sheila knocked. Blam, 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 blam. A large fireman came out and asked, "What can I do for you?" "Well," said Michael, "maybe you could show us a fire truck and hoses and rubber boots and ladders and all sorts of stuff like that." "Certainly," said the fireman. "And maybe," said Sheila, "you will let us drive a fire truck?" "Certainly not," said the fireman. They went in and looked at ladders and hoses and big rubber boots. Then they looked at little fire trucks and big fire trucks and enormous fire trucks. When they were done, Michael said, "Let's go." "Right," said Sheila. "Let's go into the enormous fire truck." While they were in the truck, the fire alarm went off. Clang, 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 clang. "Oh no," said Michael. "Oh yes," said Sheila. Then she grabbed Michael and pulled him into the back seat. Firemen came running from all over. They slid down poles and ran downstairs. Then they jumped onto the truck and drove off. The firemen didn't look in the back seat. Michael and Sheila were in the back seat. They came to an enormous fire. Lots of yucky colored smoke got all over everything. It colored Michael yellow, green, and blue. It colored Sheila purple, green, and yellow. When the fire chief saw them, he said, "What are you doing here?" Sheila said, "We came in the fire truck. We thought maybe it was a bus. We thought maybe it was a taxi. We thought maybe it was an elevator. I think maybe I'd better take you home," said the fire chief. He put Michael and Sheila in his car and drove them away. When Michael got home, he knocked on the door. His mother opened it and said, "You messy boy, you can't come in and play with Michael. You're too dirty." She slammed the door right in Michael's face. "My own mother," said Michael. "She didn't even know me." He knocked on the door again. His mother opened the door and said, "You dirty boy, you can't come in and play with Michael. You're too dirty. You're absolutely filthy. You're a total mess. Oh no, you're Michael." Michael went inside and lived in the bathtub for 3 days until he got clean. When Sheila came home, she knocked on the door. Her father opened it and saw an incredibly messy girl. He said, "You can't come in to play with Sheila. You're too dirty." He slammed the door right in her face. "Ow," said Sheila. "My own father, and he didn't even know me." She kicked and pounded on the door as loudly as she could. Her father opened the door and said, "Now stop that racket, you dirty girl. You can't come to play with Sheila. You're too dirty. You're absolutely filthy. You're a total mess. Oh no. Oh, you're Sheila." "Right," said Sheila. "I went to a fire in the back of a fire truck and got all smoky. I wasn't even scared." Sheila went inside and lived in the bathtub for 5 days until she was clean. Then Michael took Sheila on a walk past the police station. He told her, "If you ever take me in another fire truck, I'm going to ask the police to put you in jail." "Jail?" yelled Sheila. "Let's go look at the jail. What a great idea." "Oh no," yelled Michael, and Sheila grabbed his hand and pulled him to the police station. The end. How to Train Your Dragons, A Fiery Discovery by Daphne Pendergrass. The dragon riders were practicing flying in the woods one day when Astrid and Stormfly neared a cluster of trees. "Stormfly, up!" Astrid shouted, but at the last minute Stormfly ducked under the branches instead of going over them. "You're right," Astrid said as she patted her dragon. One of the things Hiccup and his friends had learned about dragons was that sometimes a dragon knows the best way to go, even when its rider doesn't. Just then, a whirring fireball flew past their heads. When it landed, Hiccup saw that it was a dragon he had never encountered before. "Hey, little guy, who are you?" Hiccup asked as he coaxed the dragon out of its hiding place. Toothless growled and tried to stop Hiccup, but his rider scooped up the smaller dragon and headed back to Berk. At the Berk Dragon Training Academy, everyone was curious about the new dragon. "It's a whole new species," said Fishlegs excitedly. "There's no telling what it might do." "Well, someone's got to take him home," Astrid added. She and the others immediately took a step back from Hiccup and the little dragon. "Well, big guy, here's your somebody," Hiccup said, picking up the dragon. The mysterious dragon quickly made himself at home in Stoic and Hiccup's house. When Stoic asked Toothless to light the fire, the little dragon shot out a burst of flame before Toothless could. "Looks like you got torched," Stoic said. "Oh, His name, by the way, Torch. Toothless growled suspiciously. Then Hiccup put out Toothless's food, and Toothless ate it all when Hiccup wasn't looking. But Torch ate it when Hiccup wasn't looking, and at bedtime, Torch took Toothless's bed. Toothless, you don't mind sharing your bed for the night, do you? Hiccup asked. But Toothless was mad. He flew into the rafters over Hiccup's bed and kept an eye on Torch all night. The next morning at the academy, Hiccup and the others measured and observed this new species. 20 inches for the wings, Astrid said. Then Fishlegs administered the eel reaction test. Torch was the only dragon known to Vikings who wasn't afraid of eels. Hiccup wanted Toothless to show Torch how to fly, but Toothless wouldn't budge. Then Torch did something amazing. He flapped his wings, and sparks came out of his mouth. He flew around and around the arena, etching a burn mark onto the ground. It spun like a typhoon, Fishlegs cried. And he came back just like a boomerang, said Astrid. So they decided to name the new species Typhoomerang. That night, as Hiccup was adding a Typhoomerang chapter to the Book of Dragons, Torch and Toothless got into a fight. Torch spit a fireball at Toothless, setting Hiccup's bedroom on fire. But Hiccup thought that Toothless had started the fire. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted as Toothless ran off. Toothless was sad that Hiccup wasn't listening to him. He went to the forest to be alone, but there he found a massive Typhoomerang with her 2 babies, who looked just like Torch. That's when Toothless realized that Torch wasn't lost at all. He was just separated from his mother. Toothless had to warn Hiccup before Torch's mom came looking for her baby. Back in the village, Hiccup was worried about Toothless, so he went to talk to Gobber. "It's like Toothless is jealous," he said. "Something must be going on underneath the surface. Dragons are complex creatures," Gobber replied. Suddenly, Toothless came roaring into Gobber's shop, trying to warn Hiccup about the mother Typhoomerang. He picked up Torch and tried flying off towards the forest. "Back down!" Hiccup yelled, putting himself between the 2 dragons. Hiccup needed to get Toothless away from Torch, so he tried riding him to the cove, but Toothless flew toward the forest, trying to find Torch's mother. That only made Hiccup angrier. "Where are you going?" he shouted. Hiccup turned Toothless around and landed him in a canyon. "You've got to stay here," Hiccup said. "I've got to separate you 2 until I can figure this out." Then he climbed out of the canyon, leaving Toothless alone. When Hiccup got back to the academy, Astrid tried comforting him. "You did the right thing with Toothless," she said. "He'll snap out of it." Toughnut interrupted them as he and Roughnut entered the arena. "You guys would not believe what we just saw in the forest." "The whole thing was torched," Roughnut added. "Torched?" said Hiccup slowly. The riders all looked at the little dragon in Hiccup's arms. Then they headed to the woods. When they flew over the forest, Hiccup was shocked to see the same burn marks that Torch had made, only much bigger. Then the riders saw something even more terrifying, a giant Typhoomerang flying through the sky. "That's Torch's mother," said Hiccup. "Torch is a baby," Astrid said in awe. That's what Toothless was trying to tell me," Hiccup said. But Toothless's warning came a little too late. The mother Typhoomerang spotted Hiccup holding Torch and swooped in toward him. The other riders scattered. Hiccup set down Torch and ran to the canyon where he had left Toothless. Hiccup found his Night Fury just in time, and together they flew away from the mother Typhoomerang. "I'm so sorry," Hiccup said to Toothless. "I should have listened to you." But there was no time for apologies. Torch's mother was right on their tail, and Torch wouldn't go back to her. He was still clinging to Hiccup. Hiccup saw that trying to outfly the mother wasn't going to work. "Toothless, up!" he called. "Now dive!" The mother typhoomerang followed them, and when they dove back to the ground, she lost her balance and landed hard on the forest floor. But when she shook off the fall and she saw that Torch was safe, the baby dragon leaped off Toothless and started playing with his siblings. "Good job, bud," Hiccup said, patting Toothless's head. "Everybody is back where they belong." Hiccup waved goodbye as their mother typhoomerang lifted Torch back onto her wing and took off, raining spinning shower of sparks down on them. Hiccup and Toothless soared home across the sky. "I should have known you were just trying to protect me." "That's what you do," Hiccup said. He learned an important lesson that day. Sometimes what your dragon is trying to say is what you really need to hear. The end. Sundog Rescue by Alison Lohans. Sometimes Melissa saw things that nobody else did. "You're weird," her brother Adam said when Melissa worried about the puddle sharks that bit people's boots. Wiggling cold toes and wet socks, Melissa went inside and told her grandmother. Grandma gave her a hug. I used to see things too," she said. Then Grandma told Melissa about the bearded face up in the hayloft in the barn when she was a little girl. "Tell me about the olden days," said Melissa. So Grandma told about riding to school in a sleigh. Grandma's mama used to bundle Grandma and her sisters in furry robes and put toasty hot bricks from the oven by their feet. "The cold seems so big and lonely," Grandma said. "Some days I fear it might even swallow me up." When it was time for Grandma to go home, Melissa's toes weren't cold anymore. When Melissa told her dad about the big-eared mice that lived in the karanga hedge, he said, "There's nothing there," and he ruffled Melissa's hair. Adam looked too, but all he found was an old tennis ball. Probably the mice were hiding. On hot summer days, Melissa could see them creeping around in the shade, nibbling weeds and scaring away birds that came too close. They scared Melissa, too. "Don't worry," Grandma whispered. "They'll go away sooner or later." Then she told Melissa about the small feathered fox that lurked outside the hen house when she was a little girl. Mama and Papa were often too busy to listen, but Granny Bobby used to rock little girl Grandma by the wood stove and help her smile her fears away. When a rock bounced up from a passing truck and hit the windshield, only Melissa saw the spider legs wriggling in the shiny new chip in the glass. She wondered if Grandma might have seen them too, but Grandma wasn't there. Melissa laughed when she saw tiny ice people scampering across the frosty lawn. She set down the paper snowflake she was making and ran to tell Grandma. Grandma told Melissa about the magic eyelash screen. "When I was little," she said, "that my Granny Bobby showed me this." Together they squinched their eyelashes just right and saw beautiful sparkly colors. The ice people turned into butterflies, and then they were gone. One very cold winter day when Adam and Dad were at a hockey tournament and Mom had a lot of work to do, Melissa stayed with Grandma. Melissa cut picture people out of old magazines and built towers with Grandma's spools of thread. They baked ginger snaps and traced their fingers on frost feathers on the window pane. Grandma told stories about the olden days. In the summer, Grandma and her sisters used to splash in the pond with their dresses on. One time in the winter, Grandma stayed too late visiting the new baby at the next farm. "I was walking home all by myself," she said, "and it got so dark. I had no idea which way to turn. Finally, I heard sleigh bells and my papa calling. Then I knew I was safe." When it was time for Melissa to go home, Grandma's car groaned and wouldn't go. The cold reached for Melissa and Grandma with long white fingers. It shivered their eyeballs and crept in through their noses. Grandma called Melissa's mom, but the line was busy. 6 ginger snaps later, it was still busy. We'll walk, said Grandma. She bundled Melissa up until she felt stiff and fat as a snow girl. Grandma bundled up too, until all that showed were 2 blue eyes and a stripe of face. When I was little, said Grandma, on days like this you could almost hear sunlight dancing. Somehow it eased the bitter cold. I wish we could ride home in a sleigh, Melissa said into her scarf, with bells and hot bricks by our feet. Outside the sundogs were very bright. Look, Melissa said, tugging at Grandma's hands. Grandma's eyes smiled. Isn't that amazing? You'd never think ice crystals could shine like that in the sun. Melissa looked at the sundogs until the colored spots wobbled in front of her. In the big, quiet outdoors, the frost flowers bloomed in all the trees. Chip, chip, said the fluffy bird balls in the lilac bushes. Tweak, 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 went Melissa's and Grandma's boots on the squeaky, sparkly snow. They came to the frozen river with Melissa's house on the opposite side. Tweak, took, 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 went their boots in deeper snow. Twook, twook, toof, as Grandma fell down the river bank. Grandma lay there and didn't move. Grandma! Screamed Melissa. Her heart went thump, thump, thump. Beneath her bundled-up sweaters and snowsuit, her tummy felt cold and scared. Grandma's eyes blinked open. I've hurt my foot, she said. Melissa, you'll have to run to get your mother. Melissa looked over her shoulder. She was sure something was hiding in the willows that grew along the river bank, and there they were, dark, fearsome shadow wolves. The shadow wolves will get me, she cried. They might eat you, too. Be brave, said Grandma, and Grandma tried to smile. Melissa remembered how Bobby used to help Grandma smile her fears away, but Melissa couldn't smile. Melissa looked at her house with smoke puffing from the chimney. Then she took a deep breath and ran. Swish! Across the green-eyed gray ice. Snap went the ice, way down deep. The shadow wolves were sniffing. Keep going, Melissa, Grandma called in a faraway voice. Melissa stumbled up the riverbank, flopping through the deep, deep snow. The shadow wolves followed close behind. Go away, she shouted, but they wouldn't. High in the sky, the shining sundogs watched. Then Melissa remembered something. Huffing hard, she squinched her eyes to make the magic eyelash scream. The sundogs grew and grew. They barked and growled. They snapped and howled. The sundogs scared the wolves away. Melissa ran and got her mom. Tweak, 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 went their hurrying boots. Thud, thud, swish, across the ice to Grandma. That's my brave girl, Grandma said with her chattering teeth as Melissa wrapped a blanket around her. Bobby would be proud of you. Hugging Grandma, Melissa could feel furry robes keeping them snug, and oven-hot bricks by their feet. Then thwook, 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 thwook went their careful boots as Melissa and her mom and Grandma limped home. Melissa looked over her shoulder. A shadow wolf. It was watching. Melissa closed her eyes and tried to smile. When she looked again, the shadow wolf was fading. It just melted away until it was hard to tell the difference between the wolf and the gray-blue shadows that stretched across the snow. Melissa squeezed Grandma's hand and listened carefully. She was sure she could hear bells on a sleigh, and just maybe horses' hooves squinting in the snow. The end.